Okay, good morning, Eleanor. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey Jay, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. Would you mind by starting about telling me a little bit about your role um, in ABM Learn and a little bit about the charity as well, please, Eleanor?
Sure. So I'm Eleanor Campbell. I have 3 kids. I live in London, although I'm not originally from there, you may tell by the accent. And I'm currently the chair of the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers. So we're a small national charity, and we are involved in education and protection around breastfeeding, making sure people know what it's about, making sure that people have the support that they need when they want to do what they want to do. The reason I came into this project was because I used to be the peer supporter course coordinator. So that was one of our training courses that we used to train breastfeeding peer supporters. So mums like you who would have a bit of knowledge about breastfeeding, who could give you the support you needed when you were going for a rough patch, when you're experiencing some of the common hurdles and problems, they could give you that support. So we train people to do that. And when we were looking for a new platform, I got the job of taking that too.
Lovely. A nice project for you, Eleanor. So tell me a little bit about the peer supporter course and I suppose what it looked like prior to ByteKast, how your learners learnt and sort of the composition of the materials.
Yeah, so we're a volunteer-run organisation. So most of our projects and things like that are entirely led by and organised by volunteers. So historically, there have been issues with, someone who's doing something who doesn't necessarily have a professional skill set and so on. And our peer supporter course gradually evolved. So when I did it in 2013, you got sent a bundle of paper and you filled in your questions.
Wow.
Posted it back to a PO box and the marker marked it for you. So we had slightly evolved from there, and we had an online course platform that was built around WordPress, where there was learning available online, questions available online, and long answer questions as well on top of that. And what we found was that partly the platform itself was a bit old. And when you're using previous versions of WordPress and whatever, and we didn't have anyone particularly skilled in maintaining that, it was getting a bit erratic, and it was also quite clunky because a lot of the learners who wanted to use it would have to be sitting down at their computer. It didn't transfer well onto iPads, phones, things like that. And I think probably 8, 9, 10 years ago, when people were doing online learning, they did expect it to be on a computer. But we'd moved on a lot from that, and we were getting a lot of questions about this isn't working for me. And, you try switching on and switching off again. Try clearing your cache.
Technical questions.
So there was a lot of that sort of tech support involved. And fundamentally the platform itself was just getting really old and clunky. It got to the point we couldn't make edits on it anymore. Occasionally the learners' work was getting eaten, which obviously wasn't great. And it was just obviously the end of its life for that style of learning platform, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of time and effort for you guys to try and keep it up, and that must have been. So the challenge was time and resource, as well as scaling it, I suppose, for people. And how many people in a year would typically have taken the course online, Eleanor? What did it?
So when the online course started, it was usually around 50 people a year.
Okay.
But by the time it finished, it was more like 300. And what we found was that the scaling up had really exposed the places where it was needing a lot of input on our side to make things move to the next point and things like that. So, and we could see that in terms of using our volunteer time wisely, that was going to be a big barrier going forward.
Of course. And your learners, are they a mix of people? Are they mums? Are they, because you've several different courses, the peer supporter is purely for new mums, is it? Or?
Yeah, so the peer supporter course is all people who've breastfed themselves.
Okay.
So they've all had breastfeeding experience, and they're there to support you as a knowledgeable friend, basically. So it's someone who can be beside you, and you can imagine having a cup of tea with them, saying, "Oh God, I found this really challenging," or "Did this happen to you? Is that normal?" That kind of sharing of information that in our society we don't really have, because the majority of people don't breastfeed for any length of time, because that's the cultural background that we're coming from. So you don't always have that sort of friend in real life.
No.
So the idea is that if we train up peer supporters who are then around in the community, they have that kind of, there's access to that support that's really, really valuable, because it's not all about the mechanics of it. It's also about, how this fits with your life and how you're going through new motherhood and new parenthood. So the peer support course is very much aimed at that. We also have a course that's equivalent kind of knowledge levels, but for kind of professional people. So midwives, health visitors, things like that. And that's called our foundation course. And that's got slightly different emphasis, because obviously the relationship with a health professional is going to be different to the relationship with someone who's on a peer basis. But those are the two first courses that are going to be on the ABM Learn platform. Eventually we will transfer all our courses over, probably.
Yeah, in times to come. So when you were looking for were you looking for a platform? Were you looking for, where do you even start in that journey? That must be quite difficult to know what you could afford, what was scalable, what was, there's a lot of LMSs out there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did a lot of looking into the available potential LMSs. Lots were a very similar model to we had previously. It was an online platform. It was, it was tutorial based. It was essay based. It was,
long content styles.
We're going to be sitting at our laptop. We're going to be plowing away through this. So there were a lot of those kind of traditional ones, and then when we approached Orion, they had both a traditional LMS, but also the ByteKast app.
And I think that really
conversation,
absolutely, we looked at both,
because I think the traditional LMS is familiar. We know what that looks like, we know what it does, and we know what we require of it. But when we started looking at the app, we realized it really spoke to what we want and what our learners need, because our learners are all people who have young children. They are people who want to snatch 10 minutes here or there. They want to have it on their phone or their iPad or whatever they're sitting with in that 10 minutes to half an hour when they've got a chance. They don't want to have to dedicate, this is my 2-hour slot a week where I am studying. So it just fits much better into the kind of type of study that we want people to be able to do. I think it works really, really well for that. And it's also just, it's so easy to integrate, a little video from here, a little blog from there, you can get little podcasts on it. So it's very easy for us to get the information our learners need all in one place without having a massive reading list that they have to go away and find and things like that. So I think it just really fits well with the style of learning we want our students to be experiencing.
Well, I remember when you first sent me over a couple of Word documents with what your course looked like. As soon as I saw it, I thought, well, there's a PDF, there's a YouTube video, we can integrate those all together into these pathways. And even your style of learning was, it had a topic base, so we could build each pathway around each topic. So it just fitted so beautifully with it. So that I suppose answers my next question, is what appeals about ByteKast. It was the different styles of micro learning.
Yeah, absolutely, because we're very aware that everybody has different ways of accessing information that work well for them. And for some people that might be reading an article, but for other people they need to see a video, they need an infographic, and we want to be able to incorporate all of that in our pathways. And one of the things I really love about the pathways is that you can have a compulsory aspect, but you can also have 3 different versions of the same information. So you can actually have multiple ways of accessing the same information, so that the learners can really personalize how they're going to get the best from that. And I think that's really important.
And have you had feedback from the peer supporter course? What have they said that they liked or disliked about it, or has it been positive so far?
Well, I mean, one of the things that's really fascinating is that nobody doing the new course on ByteKast has done the old course, so they don't know what they're comparing it to. So we don't have people repeating the course.
No legacy to think back upon.
Exactly. So these are all people coming to it completely new. And what we're finding is that learners are whizzing through the course. They are accessing it regularly. They're getting through the course and they're hitting the end well before the deadlines that previously, we allowed the same length of time for the course, but there was a lot more kind of, your deadline's in a couple of weeks, how are you getting on?
Nudge,
Exactly. And we have the capacity to nudge on ByteKast, but
we talked about that. Have we
Yeah,
not?
we haven't had to nudge anyone so far. You know, it's all working really smoothly, and we are finding that people are progressing through it faster than we thought. And I think it is because it's that, you know, whenever they have a moment, you know, they're waiting for 10 minutes at the school gate, they read an article, you know, they've got half an hour here, they're going to do this thing. And the other thing ByteKast has allowed us to do is reduce the amount of written long answer questions where, you know, and again, not everybody communicates well in that style, you know, and they're not able to get, you know, we're not able to get the best picture of what they've learned because it's not their preferred communication style. So that was meaning that we weren't able to find out what learners were doing as well. Whereas now we've got this varied role where really there's very few things you have to write a long answer about. And for those ones, we can really concentrate on those, and the markers can have a dialogue with the student about, you know, what they've said and things like that. Which just feels like it allows us to get the best out of everyone, as opposed to saying, well, you can do this, or if you don't, tough.
Yeah, you know? It's sort of like a more of a personalized learning in a way, and you have you know, testament to you guys, though your content's brilliant. You've those quizzes, which I now can give you a lot of information on breastfeeding mothers, but there's a certain pass mark within those. But the way, you know, the way that you're taught to learn with those is so intuitive. You remember it, and then you go on to the worksheet. So even the way you've planned it out is just very, very clever, and it must be engaging for the guys to come back and finish it so quickly. And I can see on the analytics people just whizzing through what we thought 12 weeks maybe, didn't we, initially, and it's probably half of that at the moment.
At the moment, and obviously there'll be an element of, you know, the people who are finishing now are the ones who are the most engaged and, you know, are really keen. But also I think things like the fact with the quizzes, you can repeat them as many times as you need. And, you know, we all know people who passed their driving test first time, but they're not brilliant drivers. You know? So we don't think that having to do a quiz multiple times to be able to really internalize the information is a bad thing. So I think, you know, being able to take away those limits and say, take your time, work your way through it, work out what the right answers are, you know, and there's no limit to the number of times you can try this is really important, because it really helps them deepen their own learning, as opposed to saying, I'm just going to, you know, try, hit the pass mark and run away, you know.
And did the app side of things, because I know we talked about learning anytime and anywhere, has that been a positive or a negative? Because, you know, most people download apps for everything nowadays, but for a learning situation, have you had people that have gone on and used the laptop, for example, instead of using, because not everybody learns, you know, I suppose not everybody wants to learn on a phone. People can log on.
Well, you say that, but we have, I think, had one log on from a laptop. Virtually everyone is using a phone or a tablet. It's the vast majority, which I think, you know, shows us that changing over to that sort of app-based learning was a really good choice. Because people do have the option of using it on the computer, but they're just not doing it.
You were just a bit of ahead of your time, because I think, you know, ByteKast is quite innovative. When you say to somebody, oh, you'll have your app, but you'll have learning, you'll have analytics. It's like John described it as a whole ecosystem of learning, and there's nothing really like that out there. So you know, it's hard to know to look for it if you haven't heard of it before, but it just seems to fit it in with the project so perfectly, you know.
I think for our needs, it you know, we were initially very reassured that, oh yeah, you can still do this on a laptop and things like that. But what we're finding out as we roll out is that that's not what our learners are looking for. Actually,
are wanting.
You know, it's what we thought we needed for reassurance. But actually, the way that people are accessing it in real life is very much, it's all about the app.
Oh my Lord. Well, that is absolutely amazing to hear. So Eleanor, if somebody was interested in looking at and applying for the peer supporter course, can you explain to me how that's done and how they access it, please?
I mean, so it's really straightforward. You go on the website, which is www.abm.me.uk, and on our training page, the links to download the app, to have your application form for payment, everything's all in one place. So once you get to that page, you really can't go far wrong. And then, you know, we just find that for so many people who do peer supporting, maternity leave can be quite a lonely time. It can be quite isolating, where you're incredibly busy all the time, but simultaneously a bit bored and a bit understimulated. So I think a lot of people find that, you know, either because breastfeeding's gone well for them and they loved it and they want to make sure people have support to experience that, or because breastfeeding didn't go well for them and they had a lot of challenges and they want to make sure that no one else experiences that. You know, those are the kind of common profiles of people who become peer supporters. And they find it really rewarding to have something that they can do, that they feel they're part of their community, they're part of, a little village of local mums, whether it's on a WhatsApp group or a local Instagram group or whatever, that they can actually share their knowledge, give a bit of support out there, and do something that they feel has helped them achieve something. And from their perspective, there's no downside. They've done this interesting course, they've learned about this thing they thought was interesting, they're able to support their peers, their friends, the people they come across. Some go and volunteer in breastfeeding groups or in hospital wards, or there's all sorts of things you can do with it. And when you do come to re-enter the world of work, or whatever point that is, you've got an interesting thing on your CV to say that here's some self-directed learning I did and some supporting I did. That I think is a great talking point to show you as a kind of self-motivated person.